For a long time, I have been searching for a WearOS watch that could last more than a day or two because I don't like it when the device that's supposed to tell me the time stops working when I need it the most. I also use my watch for sports, and GPS usage drains the battery even more. The Mobvoi Ticwatch Pro 5 is virtually the only option on the market that sustains its battery for more than 3 days, which was the primary reason it caught my attention. However, I must say the watch offered much more than I anticipated during the 2 weeks I've been using it. The battery in this device is just amazing and offers a 628 mAh capacity. Additionally, the watch features an iconic dual display to conserve even more battery life. One issue I have with the smartwatches like those from Apple, Galaxy, or Pixel is that I always want to see the time without needing to rotate my wrist. However, this isn't always possible because the screen on those watches turns off automatically. To see the time, you must enable the always-on display feature, which consumes more battery in return. That's why I've always used smartwatches like Garmin, which have the display always on. It's their overly sporty look and the less appealing display for other tasks. Also, they don't support WearOS or WatchOS, and therefore the apps that you have on them are limited. Ticwatch introduced a highly innovative solution with its dual display. The top display uses a minimal battery and functions like my Garmin for a runner with TFT display, but looks much nicer than a typical TFT one. This display is always on, which is particularly important to me when I'm engaging in sports. During my sports activities, the main display provides the necessary stats. For instance, when I tested the watch for running, walking, hiking, gym workouts, cycling, and even climbing, it displayed relevant information such as heart rate zones, indicating cardio mode in orange and heartbeats in red. It also shows key stats for specific sports you are doing. While running, for example, you can see your pace or distance, and you can use the crown to toggle through different stats on the screen. Design-wise, I just like the watch. Initially, I thought it would be too big for my wrist, but it turned out to be quite comfortable to wear. I've already received several compliments on it, with people noticing and asking about the watch. And whenever I'm going out for a coffee or an event, I just wear this instead of my sports watch. However, I'm not a big fan of the wristband, especially for sports, due to its lack of breathability. Since my wrist is hairy, I tend to sweat underneath the band, and the hole is a bit too small. I'll probably look for an alternative, but changing the band is quite easy. The watch is lightweight, weighing only 44 grams, and features an aluminum frame with Gorilla Glass for an anti-fingerprint cover. It is also waterproof, but I haven't tested it for swimming yet because it's just too cold right now to swim in the dough now. On the hardware side, the watch is equipped with a range of sensors including GPS, Beidou, GLONASS, Galileo, and QZSS, ensuring accurate GPS tracking. I was genuinely impressed by how quickly the watch finds a GPS signal outdoors. Even on cloudy days, it was literally taking just a few seconds. This quick connectivity is a significant advantage over cheaper watches, which often take a minute or two to establish GPS connection. Speaking of the cheaper watches, this watch is particularly cheap right now. In Amazon, it is as cheap as 200 euros, which is crazy for a watch with these stats. The watch also includes a compass, which was incredibly useful during my hiking trips. So we went for a hike around 3 hours. I tracked the activity with the watch. The GPS was on. It was a hike, so the altitude was also changing. It exactly used 23% battery on 3.5 hours, which is really great. It means if you go to an expedition for 2 days, the battery is gonna last the whole time, which is kind of crazy for a smartwatch. As for the software, it can be divided into two categories: in-house software pre-installed on the watch and the WearOS ecosystem. The watch also features sleep tracking, but I must admit I didn't test this function because I can't stand wearing a watch while sleeping. I've never used this feature on any watch I've ever owned. One thing to note is that the watch is quite aggressive in always going to the second display mode, which preserves more battery. For example, if you are running a stopwatch, the watch goes into the mode just after a few seconds. But fortunately, there's a workaround. I have linked a Reddit post in the description down below that indicates a tutorial on how to make sure your apps always run in the background. Basically, you have to install an app called Digital Clock Display and add the apps you want to be always on display to that list. I've already done that with the stopwatch app, and you may have noticed I use this watch to track time in my battery comparison videos. The reason I'm doing it is again because of the crazy battery life of the watch. I'm never afraid that we run out of juice during the video. Regarding recovery time and VO2 max, I attended several cycling and running sessions, and the GPS and the stats were quite accurate. I compared the distance and speed with my Wahoo Elements Roam, and the results were very close. I also wore my Forerunner and the Ticwatch Pro 5 simultaneously, and once again the stats were comparable. Please note that this is a subjective assessment based on my limited number of activities, and I haven't quantified my findings in details. So I just finished an activity. I ran for 5 kilometers, and I was wearing this one on the left hand and the Garmin on the right. The GPS accuracy was identical, like nearly identical. Both of them exactly tracked 5 kilometers on point. And the thing is, there's also a mode called performance mode. You can increase the GPS accuracy even further on the Ticwatch Pro, and even with that turned off, the accuracy was really acceptable. There's just one thing that annoys me a bit. Now I'm doing a recovery walk, and when you are doing a recovery walk, the icon of the activity is still running. I will show you. It's not that big of a deal, but yeah, I hope that they fix it. Even if I go for cycling, the icon is always a person running and not doing cycling or walking. However, I must critique the software for sports tracking. While you can use other apps like Adidas Running, Strava or Komoot for tracking sports on this watch, I prefer native sports watch apps that include all the features I need. Unfortunately, the app is somewhat basic and lacks important functions such as displaying maps during runs, and I'm also not fond of its limitation during activity tracking, which aren't comprehensive. For instance, it doesn't track your sets during a strength training workout. Another annoyance is the inability to use the crown to pause and resume activities. This can only be done by touching the screen. I really hope Mobvoi will develop a better sports activity tracking app in the future iterations and invest as much effort into it as they have in their impressive hardware. Also, I should mention that this watch is not compatible with iPhones, but it does work with both my Galaxy Ultra S24 and also with my Sony Android device. The last things that I want to mention is that the watch has a Snapdragon W5 Plus chipset on it, which means it is very snappy. It is one of the only watches beside Apple Watch that I use that doesn't lag on animations. This chipset also has some cool features, including automatically detecting your activity and tracking it when you go for a run. If you enjoyed this kind of content and you're looking for a phone to connect your phone to WearOS, check out these reviews on different devices. Thanks for tuning into Techmo. Until the next one, bye!